If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This is another of our popular Listener's Choice interviews, which we're playing over the weekend. We've chosen the most popular interviews for you to select the Listener's Choice winner. If you're not sure how the Listener's Choice competition works, have a look at horsechats.com/choice for the rules and the leaderboard. Today's guest is Sharna Kirkham. Sharna's a specialist vaulting coach. She's also an FEI vaulting lunger. She's competed at 4 international events and is getting ready to go to Germany in July. How are you, Sharna?
Very well, thank you, Glenys. How are you?
Good. Sharna, have you got a quote for us to get started?
Oh, we've got so many quotes as a coach, but one of my favourites is be good and tell everyone, be great and they'll tell you.
That's actually quite good.
It is
quite a good one for your kids, yeah. And so true, yeah.
It is. I have many levels of vaulters, some from complete beginners up to elite athletes, and it's very, very relevant to all levels.
Yeah, and some people do like to talk a bit and tell people how good they are, and then they do something to show that maybe they're just not quite as good as what they're telling everyone as well.
That's right.
Better to be a bit quiet and be great.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you started with horses, and not just how you started, but what your very first memory was.
Oh, I have some very early memories of trail riding with my mum along Dudley Beach. I'm from Newcastle originally, and lots of good trail riding memories, and then developing further into more equestrian type activities like flat work, dressage, jumping, cross country, and more trail riding, which just horses in general was a passion, came from my mum. And then when I was about 13, we discovered equestrian vaulting, and we developed that into our team, which we've been in the Hunter Valley region for over 25 years now.
Brilliant. Just going back to your trail riding, do you have a specific memory of riding along the beach? You know, what horse you were riding and what happened or anything like that? Yeah.
I do. His name was Sheik. He was my mum's beautiful chestnut horse, and he was very tolerant. And I remember riding alongside my sister, who was 2 years older than me. I must have been about 4 at the time. And Mum was walking in front of us, and this horse was just so trustworthy. We could go off lead, so we'd go along the beach, and then we'd come back up the bush track, and really good memories.
Good. All right, now you started off, because you were talking about having the vaulting in the Hunter Valley, and that was when you were about 13. What sort of gave you the interest in the first place? And
my mum was a riding for the disabled riding instructor, so she was based up at Raymond Terrace, and I'd go along to be an assistant, just helping her out where needed.
Yep.
One of the other riding instructors there was a physiotherapist as well, so she designed a program called hippotherapy, which would encourage the disabled children to move around the horse rather than just riding. It just gave them a bit more of a challenge. And then I became a support rider. And then we evolved over time to become an integrated team, and we've evolved again over time to become a high-level elite equestrian vaulting team.
Yep, very good. Now, if someone wants to work with horses, what would you say to them? What sort of core skills or character traits do you think they need?
There's so many. I would recommend always take your time with every single horse. They'll all have a story. They'll all have a background. Show respect and a strong but kind and fair approach.
Okay. And I think that's if you take your time with every horse and have that standard across all horses, but knowing then that once you've decided you're taking your time, you've still got to look at them individually.
Absolutely. Always take into account that they are just like people. You're working with different personalities, different behaviour traits and history. Every horse has their own history. And once you understand that, you can really process that and work really well into a partnership. So, yeah.
Now, when people first start, because you get kids from a fairly young age, how do you know that they're going to make it? How do you teach them that? What sort of core skills, when they first come in, if you've got a group of kids coming in for the first time, what makes them a bit unique, a bit individual that you think, you've got a little bit of extra something that's going to make it so that you're going to be better with horses? Is there anything there that you can think about?
There surely is. There's with vaulting, it's not necessary to have done dancing, gymnastics or riding as a prerequisite. It's definitely much easier to adapt to vaulting, but it's definitely not a prerequisite. To set the individuals apart, As long as they have, I always say to my guys, I would always rather a vaulter or any athlete to work with my horses to have a 5-star attitude and a 2-star quality rather than a 5-star quality and a 2-star attitude. So as long as they've got a willingness to work hard and be part of a team with our horses, and they all know this, all the girls on my team, our horses are our number one athlete. And that's how it really works.
No, I like that. I like the fact that you're putting in the athlete, and much better to get someone with less talent but with a great attitude. They're open to learning, ready to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
they're much easier to mould into athletes.
Absolutely. What do you think's the best thing about coaching and working with horses?
Well, horses, obviously. Friendships. We have a lot of friendships over the years, and just developing a really good, strong work ethic as a coach and being able to encourage these young children that become young adults to go out into the world. It's life lessons. It's not just vaulting lessons. So I think that's really important that they can translate that into their everyday lives.
Yep. Okay, now as you've gone through, because you started off with vaulter and you talked about your mother and, the other that was physiotherapist, who else do you think's influenced you and sort of taken you down the path of vaulting? Because it is a specialist path, and it's not like you came into vaulting. You remember your trail riding, you remember all other aspects within the horse industry, so you could have gone off and done other things. But what's kept you vaulting and who's influenced you to make those choices?
Okay, well, what's definitely kept me vaulting is obviously the horses, because I just have such an in-ground passion for horses and spending time with them and watching them evolve, as well as all of my children over 25 years that I've coached from beginners to elite athletes, and really, really strong characters that can also pass on their skills to horses and coaching in general. And other people that have encouraged me along the way has just countless coaches, international and national coaches that I recognise for many, many different disciplines that we incorporate into vaulting. And I've just learnt so much from, there's too many to list, because I've been attending clinics and workshops since I was 13 years old, and they all have helped mould me into the coach that I am today.
Just pick out one of those lessons, because sometimes someone can come in and you can be with them for a week, all day for a week, but they say one thing and you go, oh, right, that's really clicked with me. Is there something like that? It's just one thing, and you hear yourself teaching it. You're teaching it again and again and again.
Yeah, definitely. With vaulting, it's one of the main things that we say is to breathe and to relax, because not just for the horses, but also for the athletes. And so many wonderful coaches in Australia, we've all developed over time, develop a harmonious connection with the horses. That's something that we all enforce. So it hasn't been a particular moment, because we reinforce that as often as possible. And it's really struck with me, so that I then pass it on to my athletes. And when they're developing into becoming lungers themselves, they can translate that onto the ground level and work with that horse and have that harmonious connection of breathing, relaxing and working together.
Yep. Now, do you remember the first time anyone told you that?
Oh, gosh, I would probably have been about 15, and his name was Frank Spattinger, and he still is an international FEI judge and coach. And he was very, very firm but fair. He had us all trembling, but he was a very strong impact. So, this particular workshop, he said, no, you've got to fight for it. Vault like you mean it. If you say you can't, you have to get off and do 20 push-ups, and really, really encourage, just a really strong work ethic. But it really resonated at the time, because I guess at 15, you're sort of in between that adolescent stages. So it really resonated. Just if you want it, you've got to work for it.
Yep. Now, has there been a particular horse that you think's influenced you? I mean, I'm sure you would have had a few.
Many, many over the times, but one that does stand out in particular is one of my current vaulting horses. His name's Ben, and he had a really awful past before he came to me. He was seized went through the sale yards in Queensland. He was part of the Magic Millions, then ended up in the sale yards, then was tracked to Sydney sale yards. He ended up being seized by the RSPCA in Sydney because of a neglect case, and his previous owner was taken to court, and it was just dreadful, dreadful circumstances. He was not abused, but he was completely neglected, and he's a large horse, so he'd lost a lot of weight. So then he ended up with Horse Welfare. They're based in the Hunter Valley near me, and I came across him on their Facebook page, and coincidentally I was beginning to look for a next project horse for vaulting. And that was 3 years ago now, and he started a trial with us, and now he's vaulting horse.
Good, good. Now, because he'd be thoroughbred, wouldn't he, if he's come through the Magic Millions?
Yes.
Are thoroughbreds the best horses generally for vaulting, or do you look for any particular breed, or is it just the individual horse?
It's absolutely the individual horse. They're all different. I have 3 vaulting horses at the moment. One is a thoroughbred, which is Ben, and he's 18 one hands.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we have Cruz, who is 17 three hands, and then our smallest is Scarlet, who's 16 three hands. Cruz is an Irish sport horse. He tends to throw more to the Irish draft. He's very heavy set. And then we have Scarlet, who's Cleveland Bay Cross thoroughbred. So we are not generally breed specific, more high-level international. They do sway towards more of the warm bloods for the dressage training and the frame, and that way they can develop them for vaulting. But generally speaking, as long as they've got a good temperament and they have a nice sort of carriage and a really good trainable temperament, and they definitely need to be at least 16 hands, because if you're heading towards putting a team on them, they're going to have to tolerate up to 2 to 3 on top at the same time. So they need to be quite strong and solid.
I was going to ask you about the size. 18-1's a fair handful, for a horse. Yeah.
He's an exception.
But as you say, if they've got to have a couple of riders on them, they've got to be able to have that strength to carry the vaulters. Yeah. Okay, what do you think your proudest moment's been?
Oh, my proudest moment. Gosh, possibly being recognised as Equestrian Australia Community Coach of the Year. And in the same year, I was also recognised for Equestrian Australia Volunteer of the Year. So they were really prominent moments for me, because, as you know, the equestrian discipline, just in general in Australia, is so large. So to be recognised as a quantity of that, even a small one, was really, really fulfilling. And, some of the things that were read out about me on the night were really encouraging. So that's more on a professional level for an awards type thing. But there's so many other moments just working with horses and my teammates over the years. There's so much pride through that.
Okay. Yep. Thinking about where you are now, and you've got your team, you're heading to Germany, things are going well. What's been your biggest challenge to get to where you are now?
Biggest challenges along the way are obviously injuries.
Is that injuries for yourself or injuries for horses?
To horses and my athletes. If we set a goal to perform as a squad, you need 6 vaulters at a high level. And if one of those suffers an injury, then you need to be able to have your reserve ready to step into that role. And there's on horses on top of that as well. When horses sustain injuries, especially if they're our main horses that we're relying on for a specific competition, you then need to restructure and replan. But we've been through this, and you do come out stronger, and you do learn a lot from different scenarios that present themselves along the way with horses.
Yes, and get a bit more prepared for next time, I suppose, because any sport with a horse is team, because you've still got the rider and the horse. That's a team. But when you're talking about a squad of 6, plus horses, and then there's higher risk with that many, there's a higher risk of injury. So then you've got to have a reserve squad. So it's a fair bit of organising, isn't it?
It is indeed. It takes a lot of planning and a really good team network and lots of experience, and learn something every time. So you can be best prepared and still can all go out the window with horses.
Yes. Now I'm thinking along the lines of, first of all, to do with vaulting, what's the main thing that when people first start vaulting that they have problems with? Usually
flexibility, because unless they've come with it prior, it does take a little while to develop muscle suppleness and flexibility as well as strength. Next to that, it's horse harmony and really releasing all those nerves and connecting with the horse, because once they turn that corner, they really start progressing. So once they can just release the pent-up nerves and anxiousness that comes with trying something really new that's a bit of a challenge, once they release that, and then they can develop their strength and flexibility and all components of fitness, they can just progress beyond where they ever thought they could.
Yes, because you said about releasing it, because there's got to be a certain amount of confidence to go and to get on a horse as he's moving around, and you've got to keep asking yourself to do a bit more to keep improving, haven't you? So you've got to find that balance of getting the confidence. Yeah. All right, now another one. So that was the vaulting. Just to do with lunging. If someone starts lunging, and we're talking about lunging vaulters now, what's a common problem that they would have?
I guess on some level it's just a confidence thing.
Yep.
And horses, as you know, they're very, very big communicators with body language.
Mm-hmm.
And they can, like my mare in particular, she can call a bluff on a lunger, so she can start being a bit cheeky. But if you have that confidence to, encourage her she knows all the correct aids and she'll call you bluff. So it's just about being confident in your skills. And when you're not, then it's always good to develop those skills with a horse that will encourage you to learn rather than challenge you to not wanting to do it.
Yeah. And that's how, as a rider, you start off with a horse that is easier, that you can develop some basic skills, and it would be the same then for lunging. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, do you have a book that you can recommend to our listeners, something that will complement their training?
Well, I think pretty much all horse books can offer endless information and ideas. And as I say to my girls, it's the same as attending any clinics. You'll take something and you'll leave something. I've always been a fan of Monty Roberts and his natural approach, because I've got a lot of respect for that, and I have seen him live 2 times, and it really impacted me as a young adult, learning to work with younger, older, challenging horses, etc. So it's very hard to be specific for myself in relation to recommending a particular book. But as I said, you can always take something and leave something from every bit of information you gather. Yeah,
that's certainly having an open mind, isn't it? Yeah. And remember, you can find all the books recommended by our guests at horsechats.com/books. You can have a look at the guest page for the individual book they recommended, or just look at the recommended books by order of popularity at horsechats.com/books. Okay, now I know that you've got this competition coming up in Germany.
Yes, well, we've got a busy competition year ahead. We're off to Sydney Royal for Good Friday first. We've got a vaulting competition down there, and then we have our state championships in June, and then just after in July, we're part of a vaulting exchange where 5 of my vaulters and myself, along with I think it's 15 other Australian vaulters and coaches, are going over for an interactive vaulting exchange where we'll attend some clinics, some workshops, lots of sightseeing, a couple of international competitions. It's more networking and getting to know people, so that when we start to strive towards and develop my sport into high level, we'll have some really good contacts internationally to develop that.
Yep. What a great idea. And I bet the kids are looking forward to it as well.
Oh, they are so excited. My daughter's coming as well, and she's 5 and she's already packed.
That's really good, really good. Okay, can you summarise your philosophy with horses then, Sharna, just into a few sentences, something that is a lesson that people can take away with them?
Sure. I would say always try, never give up, always ask for help. And if you reach a point with horses when you think you know everything, that's when you know the least. So never give up trying, never hesitate to ask for help from someone whose opinion you respect, who is quite knowledgeable and can help you on further. Good.
Okay, now, Sharna, how can people contact you?
All our details we have a Facebook page called Hunter Valley Vaulting Team, and all our contact details are based on that. If not, we are on the Equestrian Australia website as an affiliated club that we can have all my contact details through that as well.
Okay, and those details will also be on that website, which will be horsechats.com/Sharna Kirkham, or else just go to horsechats.com and search for Sharna. All right, thank you, Sharna. Great talking to you today. Really happy listening it and sort of coming from vaulting, which I haven't had very much to do with, always sort of learning something and always sort of learning something about a different area of the horse industry, which has been good.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now, if you're still there, you probably know that I'm absolutely passionate about education within the horse industry. That's why I host this podcast. My other venture is Online Horse College. Have a look now at onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.